The Hovercraft Museum is located in the small seaside district of Lee-on-the-Solent, also known as Lee-on-Solent, in the borough of Gosport in County Hampshire, England. This is roughly in the center of the south coast of England, between Southampton and Portsmouth. The area is located on the coast of the Solent, which is the strait that separates the Isle of Wight from the mainland of England. Lee-on-the-Solent is known as the former home of the Royal Naval Air Station HMS Daedalus, also called HMS Ariel. The museum is operated as a non-profit charity dedicated to hovercraft, and has a large collection of over 60 hovercraft of various designs. The collection also contains the last remaining Saunders Roe SR-N4 craft, the world's largest civil hovercraft, which has been retired here since cross-channel services ceased in the year 2000. The museum also houses the world's largest library of documents, publications, film, video, photographs, and drawings on hovercraft, and a number of hovercraft manufacturers have deposited their complete archives with the museum for safekeeping. The museum is accessed by car from a coastal road called Marine Parade, and parking is on the old concrete slipway, which is what was used to get from the museum location down to the beach, and was used originally by Royal Navy float planes, and then later on by the hovercraft. You just park on the concrete and walk across the street. Here we are at May 29th, 2019, and we're on Lee-on-the-Solent, England. And this is the slipway for hovercraft to come up from the water and cross along here. And normally they would remove those barricades for it. And across the way is the Hovercraft Museum. Normally it's only open on Saturdays. This being a Wednesday, we were lucky and found that they had a special open day. There's a Saunders Roe Nautical 4, famous model.
Is this self-conducted, or we have somebody?
This is a Saunders Roe Nautical 4, or SRN4. It's the only surviving example of this model, also known as the Mountbatten class hovercraft, and it's called the Princess Anne. This one crossed the channel many times over a period of time, but is now retired, and as I said, it's the only last one they've got. Seems like these are mostly not identified. Looks like the center turbine on this blower is missing. Okay, this one's identified. It's a Hover Rover, built in 1969, Canadian model, with 3 Rockwell JLO2 or JLO 2-stroke engines, and carries 2 to 3 people. Looks like this guy here has, almost looks like a garden tractor engine running the downward blower, and then another one of different, it's a motorcycle engine to drive it forward. Looks like a homebrew. Oh, this isn't a hovercraft, it's part of a Britain-Norman Islander aircraft. Boy, I used to fly on those a lot in the early 80s. This is a Sealand skitterbug. Almost like a rubber raft with a skirt added to it. Very minimal seating. This one's transportable on top of a small car. Looks like it's good for whitewater rafting. So this is a Pindair Skimma hovercraft. Mike Pindair built his first hovercraft called the Pincushion in 1968, mainly in a spare bedroom. He founded Pindair Limited, based in Gosport, a company which supplied hovercraft to over 50 countries worldwide and made the world's first inflatable hovercraft. And this is the Skimma 4 Mark III, designed for use as an amphibious transport for 4 people or 2 people plus equipment. This is pretty cute. From the Hover Club of Great Britain. And this is a Pindair Skimma hovercraft, the Skimma Model 12. Semi-inflatable, including police, patrol, and rescue applications. Accommodated 11 passengers. This is one of 3 used by the Sultan of Oman to ferry his family and staff to the royal palace through the surf to the waiting royal yacht. It was restored by TV's Salvage Squad. This looks like a levitation blower. This isn't a propulsion propeller, but it looks like it's the kind that's used to provide the hovering air. This is a Hoverguard 800. It's the only American hovercraft in this museum. The Association of Search and Rescue Hovercraft, Gosport branch. This hovercraft here was built in 1966 by Hovercraft Developments Limited, which was a government agency. Designed and built as a near-scale model of a 90-ton passenger car ferry, it was designed purely to research and test hovercraft controls. It was also hoped to demonstrate quiet propellers and skirts that could be quickly replaced in 2 hours with the craft on a beach, and was equipped with an inverted periscope for observing the interior of the cushion skirt prior or behavior at speed. It's currently awaiting restoration work to be carried out. It's called the HD2.
The bottom propeller looks like maybe that wheel there is right there.
Way up on the shelf.
Yeah. I can see it in there.
There's a bunch of little ones up along the shelving here. Proof that hovercrafts don't have to be big. This hovercraft is the Saunders Roe Nautical 4, better known as the SRN4. It's also known as the Mountbatten class hovercraft. It was a passenger and vehicle carrying class of hovercraft. Work on the SRN-4 was begun in 1965 by Saunders Roe. Power was provided by 4 Rolls-Royce Proteus Marine turboshaft engines, each driving its own lift fan and pylon-mounted steerable propulsion propeller. The propellers were at least 19 feet in diameter, with the larger models having, I believe, 21-foot diameter propellers. The SRN-4 was the largest hovercraft then built, designed to carry 254 passengers in 2 cabins, plus a 4-lane automobile bay which held up to 32 cars. The first design was 40 meters or 130 feet long, 24 meters or 78 feet wide, and weighed 165 tons. It was capable of 154 kilometers per hour or 95 miles per hour, and could cruise at over 111 kilometers per hour or 69 miles per hour. Some SRN-4 hovercraft were later modified by stretching to 56 meters or 185 feet long for a new capacity of 418 passengers and 60 cars. The SRN-4's operated services across the English Channel between the years 1968 and 2000. Originally, 2 of the larger SRN-4s, the Princess Anne and Swift, were retired to Lee-on-the-Solent, but Swift was scrapped in the year 2004, leaving the Princess Anne as the only surviving example of its type. And here's the SR-4 again. Supposed to be the largest commercial hovercraft ever operated, although there have been some military ones that are a little bit bigger. And here's a military one, although it's not one of the real big ones.
Out of the puddle, Dexter. Out the puddle, Dexter. It's going that way.
Here's a picture of one of this model coming in on a slip. So this hovercraft is supposed to carry about 60 cars and roughly 400 or so passengers for a very short channel crossing, and as such the car area is in the middle and the passenger area is along the sides. Stairs down to the car deck. Presumably this is one of the fan casings. Yeah, it looks like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, possibly 3 vehicles on each side of the center line, so about 6 cars wide, and then however deep that is. And if you could fit 10 cars nose to nose in here, then you'd have 60 cars right there. So originally I thought I wouldn't have enough room, but it seems to add up. A lot of extra seats here just stored for the moment. This is one of those things I wished I would have taken a ride on when I had a chance. Trying to figure out what part this is. It's not a propeller. Maybe it's one of the fins that they use for steering. I have to look at another picture of it. A bunch of these little homebrew hovercraft, very simple. Yeah, that's what those big vanes are there. Those have to be these fins right there. A little bit of leakiness from the roof up here. And just as with the military hovercraft we looked at, this one has apparently just a simple ladder going up to the cockpit area from the car deck. So unfortunately we can't get up there for a look. So as one of the, they've got all four of the cockpits here. Obviously the one that's on this craft, and then that one, and then there's a couple of more, like this one sitting here is another one, and then there's supposed to be one in this building. So they've got all the cockpits, but this is the only actual hovercraft of this type they've got. Apparently they used to have all this space over here, and the other one was kept there. But the land is just rented, and the landlord can kick them off at any time, and they apparently did not allow them to renew their lease on that half, so they couldn't move the hovercraft, so they had no choice but to cut it up for scrap. And the Princess Anne here is in danger of the same thing, the fellow explained to us, because this is prime real estate, and it's quite possible that the land agent, as he said, the realtor or whoever owns it could evict them, in which case they wouldn't have much choice because this craft is not operable. In other words, log onto their website and make a donation if you think things like this should be preserved. The propeller disc diameter is supposed to be roughly 19 feet tip to tip. So those are, I think, more or less in the same size category as propellers on maybe the B-36 bomber, maybe even a bit bigger than that. I don't recall exactly what that one was. And they do give hovercraft rides here from time to time, but not using the museum's hovercraft, none of which are quite ready for operation. And the bigger issue, they said, is that as a museum they're not allowed to operate any of the equipment. So they actually contract with a hovercraft operating organization to come over and give rides from time to time on those other guys' hovercraft. And I believe it is this Princess Anne here. I think this is the one that was featured in the James Bond movie, although I'm hard-pressed at the moment to remember which one it was. Nice sheet metal shears and a bending brake there. Looks like two operators, one in front of the other. There's another seat here, but no controls. I'm trying to remember what they said. They had some sort of a presence starting in the mid-1970s, and then I think it was more of a hovercraft club, I think he said. And then around 86 or thereabouts, it became an actual museum. And then they were located somewhere else, and then they moved to this location in the mid-90s, I believe, and have been here ever since. But as he mentioned, they've downsized because they were forced out of half of this area by the landowner. You can go on Google Earth or Google Maps and find historical photos, aerial photos of this museum when it had both of the Mountbatten class hovercraft parked here. So, very cozy compartment. steering and propeller pitch control cabinet. Looks like a lot of circuits that can be unplugged for one reason or another. This particular one is the cockpit from the Swift. Saunders Row Nautical 4 Mark I Swift. The second one that was built. She was converted to a Mark II in 1972 to 73, widened to increase her capacity from 250 to 282 passengers. She was donated to the museum in 1994 but broken up in 2004. Obviously this is a radar set. So you've got the radar operator. And they've got a track around this position, so perhaps they could pull a curtain around to make it darker in here. Maybe to help read the radar screens better, I'm guessing. Fuel transfer starting, port and starboard engines, refueling, windscreen washing and wiping, trim gyro, fuel transfer, hydraulic oil, gauges, APU stuff. And they call these flight engineer checklists. And this is 200 volts and 400 CPS supply and distribution, 28 volt supply, navigation lights, ventilation, battery gauges and things. And of course everything is sort of nautical and aeronautical at the same time. Saunders Row being a notable maker of large flying boats, amongst other things. So you've got engines 1, 2, and 3 torque, air inlet temperature, main gearbox gauges, propeller gearbox gauges, fuel, oil pressure, oil contents, oil tank temperatures, pressures, you name it. Jet pipe temperatures, compressor RPMs times 4, so that's all engine controls, fire suppression, port and starboard, front, forward, and port and starboard aft, engine turbine RPMs, again very much aviation oriented controls. And this is propeller brakes and throttles. And I'm not sure what this set here is. Maybe that has something to do with the levitation. And this is your basic speed, pitch, and heading gauges. The fin angles, pylon angles, oscillators, compass, rudder bar actuators, I think that's rudder, car deck PA, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Glad they opened this up. It appears that this is a hovercraft that was used in another James Bond movie, Die Another Day, with Pierce Brosnan. This is an Aero Pacer. One pilot, one radar operator. Cargo and seating. No other amenities. This was a hovercraft from the mainland to the Isle of Wight.
It may not have come your way yet, but we find it almost hard to remember pre-holidays. Just like getting on a bus. We could go by boat, of course, but public travel is, well, quicker. We're up on our air cushions, and on a day like this, we're soon doing 50 knots. it takes for the 3-mile crossing. No messing about at the end. A short walk, and I'm off on my way again. No sooner had she got rid of us, than she's turned round and on her way back again. Nothing special about this when you're used to it.
Nothing special. Let's go back and consider the ingenuity of the father of Hovercraft, Christopher Cockerell, and the use he made of a simple hairdryer, a tube, kitchen scales, and 2 kitchen tins. In the now famous coffee tin experiment, Cockerell attached the tube to the hairdryer, directed the airflow to one side of the scales, and counterbalanced its effect with a weight. Then, after fitting one tin inside the other, so that the air could flow freely between them, emerging as a circular curtain, he attached this contraption to the end of the tube. If he was right in his belief, when he now directed the same airflow from the same height onto the scales, more weights would be needed to counterbalance it. He was right. A simple cylinder, open at both ends with a fan fitted inside, hovered slightly on the low-pressure air cushion it created. But by widening the base section, although hover height was barely altered, extra weight could be supported. And when a bottom was added to this base section, what happened? On striking the surface, the air curtain was deflected both inwards and outwards until a cushion of air was built up inside and then trapped by the now entirely outflowing air curtain. Thanks to that cushion, the same airflow was carrying the same weight at an increased hover height. Angling the air curtain inwards gave an even deeper air cushion and a further increase in the hover height. This was applied in the original SRM-1 and the craft that followed. This version of the CC-2, which hovers a clear foot above the surface, has been primarily used for research. Is immersed like a normal boat. It is largely water resistance which limits the speed of ordinary craft. But marine hovercraft can rise on its air cushion, leaving only the thin edges of its side walls in the water. In its early days, the HD-1 was used for research and development, and for the evaluation of the performance of sidewall craft. Flexible extensions, or skirts. Because these adjust themselves closely to uneven surfaces, a better seal of the air cushion is obtained, producing a smoother and more level ride and an increased clearance height. The skirts, made of plastic-coated fabrics, vary in design according to the particular craft. The SRM-5 was the first production hovercraft to take advantage of flexible extensions, giving a 4-foot clearance between the surface and the hard structure of the craft. On meeting obstacles, the skirts simply brush aside. SRM-5s have been out working with the forces in the Far East, doing regular runs over shallows and uncharted rapids which no other craft can touch. At time, they met a 12-knot current. And on one 300-mile run, they averaged 40 knots. In the Middle East, too, the hovercraft has shown that it's more truly amphibious than any other vehicle. All these things explain the growing interest in British hovercraft throughout the world. The hovercraft industry has large passenger and car ferries in production. One of them carries 250 passengers and over 30 cars, or up to 800 standing passengers. Working models aren't only needed in research, they're used to demonstrate to customers and help fill the order books. When crafts are ordered, research may have to be linked with actual performance requirements. Airflow problems, cushion behavior, propulsion. These are the main fields of investigation.
I'm just curious.
This is the CC-7 military hovercraft used by the Army's 200 Squadron Royal Corps of Transport, a hovercraft squadron at Browndown Gosport, built in 1968. It spent some years at the Fleet Air Arm Museum in Yeovilton before being given to this museum. I wonder if we saw this when we went to that museum years ago. And this is the fourth cockpit from the other. I don't know if you heard him mention that. They have all four cockpits from the big SRN4s. This one looks a little bit more modernized. It has video screens instead of the old-fashioned radar screens. There's actually some power in this one. Some of the controls are lit up. Hey, wait a minute, there's an ICs on there. This thing's been upgraded. It's a Harris part. This one's had its skirt unpinned. Looks like it attaches all along the bottom of the rigid body with a bunch of hinge pin type arrangements that correspond to the edge of the skirt. And underneath is just sort of boat-like.
If they're exhausted, you would have left them as long. But we found out later, as soon as we told them, we'll get his name, spots through the house of horror. And he's been trying. Of course, just get focusing the block on this rubber ring. And he's done it on various other bits and pieces.
So it looks like it's 7 wide if this is to scale. 7 wide for cars.
Now today, Peter, what are you talking with the craft? Yes, just a little one engine, 2 times actually, one first in the morning from start an engine and then a bit later. And I think they're getting a bit old and saying we don't want to go, you know, they're getting a bit temperamental. We don't usually have very many problems, hardly at all. But the second time it took a little while for the engineers to find it, but we found it all right. And we didn't have to transfer passengers, fortunately, so we're okay. But fine now.
How do you
yes. We transfer from one to the other all the time. We take 07 or we take 06. I'm on 07 at the moment. So we transfer between them every day. It can be different every day all the time.
As women, they've got a different feel to them?
Yeah, they're very, very much so. This one on 07 is a far better boat. It feels, if you're really hovering, for some reason, and 06 seems a bit stodgy, like quite an old hot water bottle. A bit stodgy, and it doesn't seem to ride the waves quite as well, which is very strange because they're completely and utterly the same, but they feel different, like all boats do.
So, Captain Peter, on the last trip, what's going to happen? Is it just for Hover Speed people?
The very last trip is for Hover Speed personnel, yes, and I'll be on there. I'm not driving, I'll just be one of the people celebrating and weeping a bit maybe down below with a drink in my hand. So I'll be on the last trip, yeah.
And what will happen to them as from Monday, the 2nd of October?
Yeah, it's been a bit of indecision by the company at the moment, but as far as we know, they're staying on the pad till about the 16th of October. And then they're going down to Lee-on-Solent at Southampton, at the museum, the Hovercraft Museum. And they're being maintained there. We don't know exactly what level, but they will be being maintained there for a while. And whether still trying to sell them, we don't know as yet. But they're going to be there for a while, and if no one buys them, I'm afraid that's probably the end. But the museum may hold one of them. Hopefully they'll keep one of them.
Can't you find
Do most of the steering. They steer the pylons. They've got 4 pylons which turn on the roof, and they do the actual steering. and we call this a yoke, and that drifts it from one to the other, makes all the pylons go one way, so we drift it to left and right, and then it's a combination of them all.
Over a year ago, Paul, and of course he had the honour of seeing one of the craft named after him. The craft which were running for Hoverloid, one of them was called Sir Christopher, after Sir Christopher Cockrell. Never again will the call sign Golf Hotel Tango Bravo call up the Dover Harbour Control asking for clearance onto the harbour pad.
And who do we have to thank for this magnificent British invention? Well, none other than Christopher Cockrell, for his dedication and hard work from 1955 to get this craft up and running. We have to thank Saunders Row and the company that followed in their footsteps, the British Hovercraft Corporation, who are based in Cowes in the Isle of Wight. We have to thank a railway company, not a shipping company, because it was British Rail who had the foresight to decide to make the first order for the SRN4. We have to thank Swedish Oil. They started their own hovercraft company, which was Hoverloid, based in Pickle Bay near Ramsgate in Kent, and from there they operated to Calais. We have to thank Sea Containers and of course Geoffrey Eade and his team based in Dover with Hoverspeed. His brilliant engineers and the professional crews managed to keep this craft operating to such high standards right through to today. And so, as they say in all the best travelogues, it's aloha to the SRN4 as she makes her final trip through to the great hangar in the sky.